Hi everybody, it's Clive here. In this little video I want to talk a little bit about low-key pictures and also about making some adjustments to pictures to get the most out of them. This is Eleanor's image for the low-key part of Week 8's assignment. It's a lovely portrait, but I would like to do a few little tweaks to it just to try and get the most out of it, just to make myself happy. This may be perfectly good for Eleanor and anyone else, but here's just how I would play with this image. First of all, it's really warm. It's mainly dominated by yellows and reds, and I think it would actually look better as a plain black and white image. Secondly, it is a low-key image. You know, the main light is at a very low intensity, but it's lacking in highlights. Overall, it's very underexposed, and to my way of thinking, a low-key image can be low light, but it still has highlights. So, you know, the picture is dominated by dark tones, but it still has some highlights in the image, and to my way of thinking, that, you know, an image with a good range of tones from black all the way up to complete white can be a lot more satisfying. Not always, but often. So I'm just going to step you through what I would do to this lovely portrait of Eleanor's, just to get it to where, you know, I would like it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up in Photoshop. First thing I'm going to do is convert it to black and white straight away. I'm going to go down here, and instead of actually tinkering with the file, with the layer, I'm going to use an adjustment layer, which it preserves the actual layer beneath, but it puts a new layer on top, which we kind of see through, and it creates the effect we want. So opening up the black and white conversion, and there we go. It's just immediately converted to black and white. Now you can see it's still very dull. So most of the action here is in the red and yellow band. If I drop the greens, the cyans, the blues and the magentas right out of it, it hardly changes the image at all. So let's play around with the yellows. See, I'm boosting the yellow tones here, and it's coming up to a pretty cool black and white image. Now this is no longer low key, right? See, it's quite a nice even exposure, and that's not quite what we want. So now I'm going to introduce you to another tool, which is the levels adjustment tool. So I'm going to open up a levels adjustment layer, and this is a really cool tool to play around with. It comes with a histogram, which shows you the number of pixels on the left of this histogram, all the black pixels. So we've got black, lots of black pixels coming through to a range of midtones, but up here at the white end of the scale we don't actually have any pixels that are pure white. So I can adjust that by dragging this slider down and making the top range of tones pure white. And I could slide it all the way, and you can see everything starts to blow out. This is where we are. Things are a little dull. I'm just going to pull it down to about here. So we start to clip and blow out some pixels, but not all of them. So we're just going to get a handful of pure white tones in this image, mostly around the eye, where I really want my attention to be drawn, the viewer's attention to be drawn. We've got some highlights here in the mustache, some whites there, a few whites here in the ear, and a lot of whites here on the forehead, which I think are a little bit of a distraction, so I'm going to deal with those later. But for now, you know, I've got my highlights where I want them, but it's not low key anymore. So now I'm going to play with the midtones slider and see what that does. I can make the midtones brighter, or I can effectively make those midtones darker. And now I've got an image that is more where I want it. It's very gritty, you know, it's very contrasty, but this is something I quite like. It's very characterful. It's got pure blacks, it's got a range of midtones, and it's got some pure whites. So this is kind of where I like this image. But as I mentioned before, we've got some highlights here that are just a little bit distracting from the eye. I want the eye to be the focus of attention. So I'm just going to burn these parts of the original image layer in. Now burning is darkening a part of an image, and dodging is lightening part of an image. So I've got my burn tool on here. It's at about 34%, and it's going to burn or darken the highlights. So I'm just going to go over some of the highlights I want a little duller. Take that hot spot off the nose, off the mustache, off the forehead. And I'm just going to leave it there, because maybe burn the ear a little bit more and a little bit of that forehead. And this is now an image that I'm pretty happy with. It's black and white with a range of tones. It's still low key, it's not bright, it's very dark and moody in nature, but it's got that range of tones that pleases me. I'm going to save it as a new file number, so just as a TIFF. Go back to, so there's our original, very warm, lots of reds and yellows, and quite flat, but now I've boosted the contrast and got rid of some of the distracting hot spots, and that's just what I would do with it. And just remember, low key doesn't have to mean low exposure and dull. It's still good to have some highlights, some real whites in there, as well as lots of blacks in your low-key image. So I hope that was a help to you, and I hope you take some of these techniques, and remember that levels tool is really great. It's got a histogram that shows you, how many black pixels you've got, where all your midtones are, and where your highlights are, and you can just play with the sliders and get the picture you've got really working to your own taste. So I hope that was helpful. Coatman out.